You're watching Delta Daybreak.
Good morning, Mississippi Delta. Welcome back to Delta Daybreak. We've got Ike Trotter here today to give us some advice on finances. Ike?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to be with
have you. One of our close friends at WXVT, and of course a lot of your audience out there. They absolutely miss you. So what do we have going on today?
Well, it is great to be here, and great to be here with you as well. Tammy, we've heard the old expression, keeping up with the Joneses. And so hopefully in what is now considered the aftermath of the Great Recession of 2008-2009, there's a new type of expression for this type of socio-economic slang. It's called slip-sliding with the Smiths.
Sliding with the Smiths.
Now, what this refers to is the fact that in today's America, you find for middle-class Americans that more people are working harder, they're working longer hours, and oftentimes they're having to work two jobs just to stay afloat financially. In fact, much of the growth of the middle class, of the standard of living of which the middle class has built up over the last 50 to 100 years, much of that growth over the previous generation has been from the fact that both spouses, it's a necessity that both spouses have to work in order to make a good income.
Yeah, growing up, it was just my father that worked, and my mother was a homemaker. But now I'm finding that, I mean, I love my job. I love being here with you guys this early in the morning, but both myself and my husband have to work.
The economic necessity is that both spouses have to work in order to make a good income. So I'm tying all this into a great article that I read recently in U.S. News and World Report, and it was called The 7 Stressors Sapping America's Middle Class Today. And in it, they talked about the financial realities that are affecting middle-class American and American families as they try to scratch out a decent income and a decent standard of living and continue to perpetuate what's been called the American way of life. So I thought we would start with these 7 stressors. We'll go through as much as we can this half hour and then finish up in the next half hour. That's okay.
Sounds good, Ike.
Number 1 is the impact of falling incomes. And by that, what we're talking about is nowadays we're seeing more of the uncontrollable costs that we have to deal with. These expenses going up on us as our income is either falling or staying flat. And those types of economic factors I'm talking about are such as housing, vehicles, transportation, groceries, utilities, cable, going out to eat, traveling. All these expenses are going up on us. Yet our incomes are not commensurably rising to those costs. Another thing we're seeing, economists have said that since from the years 2000 to 2008, that the median income of most Americans stayed flat. And that is the slowest, that's the weakest performance of American incomes over this time period since the end of World War II.
Wow.
Economists are also saying that during the years of the Great Recession, which we're looking at as 2007, 2008, and 2009, that median net incomes actually dropped by some 5 to 7%. Makes it tough.
That's very tough.
Now here in the Delta, which I can relate to, we've seen in so many situations where people that have been able to stay with a job, with a plant or a factory or a small business, their incomes are flat. They're probably having to had to cut back and work less hours. Many of the employer-sponsored benefits that they had in previous years have been trimmed back or cut, and they're not enjoying the prosperity that middle-class families have seen over the last 50 to 75 years. So it's been tough. It's been particularly tough here in the Mississippi Delta as we're gradually trying to come out of this recession that we had.
Wow. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you were saying about going to the market, I know I went to shopping the other day, a box of cereal that should have been, in my mind, $2-3 was $5-6.
Yep.
And that is extremely tough when you don't have the income in order to support that.
Extremely tough. Stressor number 2 says shrinking savings equals a shrinking net worth. And what I mean by that is, from the value of our homes to the trade-in value of our cars to the value of our retirement programs, whether in a 401k plan through an employer or IRAs. Americans are hurting. In fact, it has been estimated that Americans' net worth over the last 3 years has dropped by some $12 trillion, which comes to about $102,000 per family. Now, I took the liberty when I got here early this morning, Tammy, to write out $12 trillion. And if that can be seen very well, look at all the zeros to $12 trillion.
That's 4 sets of zeros.
That's right. So it takes a long page to write in $12 trillion.
Exactly.
The 7 stressors sapping the middle class today.
And you showed us a really, really large figure. And now we're going to move on to the next part of this.
Going to go as fast as we can. The third identified stressor to the American middle class today is what's called escalating health care costs. Tammy, from 1990 through the end of 2008, health care costs have gone up some 155%, as opposed to the median family income of 20%. 62% of all personal bankruptcies in America today are caused by health care costs, which can overwhelm a family's finances very quickly. Stressor number 4 is the expenses of child care as well as elder care. And what we're seeing here is a balancing act for many of those in what's called the baby boom generation. And those are the ones that are born between 1946 to 1964. I'm a member of that generation. And we're seeing that they're having to deal with both of those contingencies now at the same time. And as I talked about in the first half hour, that most families now, in order to have a good income, require that both spouses working. They're having to pay for someone else to do those requirements, whether it's paying for children to go to child care or paying for elderly adults or grandparents to go to nursing homes or assisted living facilities. It's really expensive in that area.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Number 5 is college costs. Well, we all know about that. I've still got one child left in graduate school. And college costs have risen by some 43% since 1990, which is 50 to 75% greater than the cost of living that we've had on an annual basis. According to the State Treasurer's Office, Tate Reeves' office in Jackson, they say that the rate of inflation on college expenses has gone up by some 4.86% over the last 20 years. And once again, Tammy, that's much greater than the rate of inflation, and it's putting a greater stress on families making ends meet and trying to give children the benefit of a good college education if they can. As
well as the government, I would imagine, because a lot of people going to college are having to go to financial aid because they can't afford to pay for it out of pocket.
You betcha. So what's happening is kids coming out of college, they're having debts that a generation before could not even have dreamed about. Stressor number 6 to American middle-class families nowadays is housing. And we don't have to talk very much about that. We know about this. It's particularly acute for those young families that have noticed that their home values have flipped over the last 5 to 10 years. And by that I'm saying that the fact that their mortgage is actually greater than the value of the house if they're wanting to sell it.
They're being upside down in those mortgages.
Oh, yeah. And finally, the 7th stressor that's sapping American families today deals primarily with what's called false expectations. And by that I mean, Tammy, for the last 50 to 75 years, the motto to the American middle class has been that a good education guarantees a good job, that hard work brings forth prosperity, and that 40 years working at a 40-hour job ensures a comfortable standard of living. And what's happening is those rules are changing. And the ones that are able to succeed in the days ahead are the ones that are able to go by the new rules. Because what we're finding is those older rules are not working as well as they did.
And you're exactly right. I remember in school it was get your education, find a good job, everything will be okay. And you're right, a lot of those things you're not seeing come to pass now because the economy is the way it is, the housing market's the way it is, our salaries are the way they are, and they seem to have leveled off, and you're not getting anything more.
Right, there was a good article in the Wall Street Journal a few months back, and it talked about the fact that more and more children that are either leaving the home soon or finishing college, they're more and more facing the expectation that they might not make as much as their parents or their grandparents did.
Wow.
It's a tough issue.
It is, definitely. Ike, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to have you back here.
Look forward to it.
This is really good stuff.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Delta Daybreak. We'll be back with Zach.